Ladies and gentlemen, dear members and colleagues, on behalf of the Franco-German Office for the Energy Transition, I wish you good morning. My name is Sven Rösner and I will present today's webinar. Thank you very much for having registered and tuned in today for this session, during which we shall take a look at current evolutions on power markets. Some of you might have followed our webinar on power market prices in May 2020, when a sharp drop in consumption led to an unprecedented phase of negative power prices. We also met 1 year ago to talk about a rally that was only about to start, as we know now. Ever since, power markets in Europe and particularly in Germany and France have been bullish, with unprecedented peaks last spring, only to cool down a little bit over the last few weeks, just when we sent our invitation. So we thought maybe we were too late with our webinar. I don't think so if I look at the number of people that signed up for today's session. And all this might seem contradictory if we look at the months that lie ahead of us, and also still only half of France's nuclear capacity running. Prices for futures are slowly declining. The spot market also seems to calm down in general, only to begin a new hike at the beginning of this week. So maybe after all, this webinar makes more sense than ever today. In Germany, we usually say that during a football World Cup, we are 80 million team managers of our national team. And I'm starting to get the feeling that this time, no one talks about football. Everybody talks about energy prices, and we have 450 million market regulators in the European Union. Market design has become a household term. The Iberian model is pulling a lot of interest, and concepts for market intervention are evolving on a weekly basis. One quick look at the list of registrants for today's session tells me that we have picked the right topic for today's session, and also the right speaker to explain what has been going on these past 12 months, and also to give us a quick impression of how things might evolve from here. And it is a great privilege for us to have Cora Töpfer, Senior Public and Regulatory Affairs Officer at EPEX with us today, who follows all of these issues very closely for Germany, France and Europe. Good morning to you, Cora. We are very much looking forward to hear your analysis in a minute, but before I'll pass over to you, I have a few technical announcements. We are aware of the fact that this issue stirs much attention and that you, our audience, might have quite a few questions for our speaker. You can submit your questions via the question function in the webinar cockpit. We will do our best to keep at least 20 minutes for a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, but that might not be enough to answer all of them. I'd like to apologize for this straight away. However, we shall brief our speaker on all unanswered questions after the end of the webinar. Also, the slides of the presentation will soon be available on our website, and you shall receive a notification mail once they are available for you to download. A video recording of this session will soon be available also on our website in the member section. A big thank you to Cora for agreeing to this. If you should experience difficulties with the sound or the image, my advice for you would be to shut down the webinar plugin and to relaunch it by clicking the link in the notification mail you received this morning. One last thing before we start. At the end of the webinar, you will be asked to participate in a quick questionnaire, which consists of 5 questions. You can skip that, but if you participate, you will help us to improve our format. And that's all from my side for now. Let's get started. Cora, please take over. Have a great webinar, everyone.
Yes, thank you very much, Sven, for this introduction, and good morning to everyone. If we go to the next slide, another next slide. Here are the topics that I would like to focus on in the next hour. And I think it's exactly the right moment to talk about these issues or these topics today. And also the German Bundestag is today discussing about the electricity and gas price brake. So I would like to first give a short introduction to the market structure and the price formation in the European spot markets. Then I would like to focus on security of supply for this winter. Then I would like to continue with giving an overview of the market intervention proposals at EU and national levels, when already mentioned the Iberian model, for example, that has been implemented in Spain and Portugal and broadly discussed. Then I would like to dive a little bit deeper into one measure, the market revenues cap that has been decided at European level and is now being implemented in all the European member states. And I would like to conclude with an outlook on the future market design and our considerations from EPEX spot side, what would be needed for a decarbonized future electricity market design. If we go to the next slide, and another thank you. Allow me just a few sentences about the European Energy Exchange EPEX spot. So electricity markets, they are highly complex and they require a transparent and secure organization. And this is what we do at EPEX spot. So we organize in 13 European countries the day-ahead and the intraday markets, so meaning the physical short-term markets. And by physical, I mean that it's every megawatt hour that is traded on our platform is actually then also physically delivered. We have more than 300 trading members, including big utilities, smaller municipalities, direct marketers, industrial consumers, TSOs, and also pure traders. With regard to our volumes, it is last year 621 terawatt hours have been traded on our platform, and this corresponds to 1/3 of the European electricity consumption. If we go to the next slide, I would briefly like to remind the general functioning and purpose of the day-ahead and the intraday market. So the day-ahead market is organized in form of an European-wide auction where all the 24 hours of the next day are traded. And the purpose of this day-ahead market is, well, that on one day before, producers and suppliers, they already have a quite clear picture of the electricity offer and demand for the next day. And here a large part of the production is marketed. So the day-ahead market is the market where the decisions are taking which power plants are activated to satisfy the demand. It's based on the merit order principle, based on pay as clear. And I think we all became merit order specialists in the last couple of months. It even, merit order principle has even been explained at the 8 o'clock evening news at television. So I think I do not need to go into more detail on the merit order principle, but it's a principle that is applied for the price formation at the day-ahead market, and it ensures that demand is always met at the lowest costs. Then we have the intraday market, and it's organized in a different way. It's continuous trading, so it means that as soon as two bids are be merged, or fit together, the transaction is executed. And here the purpose is different one. Here on the intraday market, flexibility is commercialized. So market participants, they can take last-minute adjustments very close to delivery. In Germany, for example, you can trade until 5 minutes before delivery. And this is necessary to react to unforeseen events or forecast errors, for example. If we go to the next slide, I would like to show what prices are we talking about then. So in the past, we were used in France, in Germany, in Central Western Europe, to prices at the wholesale market at about 30 to 60 euros per megawatt hour. And we have seen price peaks in the past, for example, the cold spell over Europe in winter 2016, 2017, or also the banking crisis. But as you can see on the right side on the price curves, the current situation is really unprecedented. So this price peak is something that this price increase and volatility is something that we have never seen before. And just to highlight one number, for example, the average annual day-ahead price in Germany in 2020 was about 30 euros per megawatt hour, so what we were used to. And the last year, the average German price was, so in 2021, was 96 euros per megawatt hour, and that's only the average yearly day-ahead price. If we go to the next slide, I wanted to zoom a little bit in to have a closer look on the development of the French and the German monthly day-ahead prices. So how did they develop over the last months? We see a slight decrease after a high peak in August. We see a slight decrease in starting in September. This is also linked to decreasing gas and CO2 prices, but still the October price monthly day-ahead price for October in Germany was at 153 euros per megawatt hour, so still 4.5 times higher than the October price 2 years ago, so compared with the pre-crisis level. And similar picture in France, 179 euros per megawatt hour. This was the monthly day-ahead price for October in France. And this corresponds to 4 times higher the value that we have seen in October 2 years ago. If we go to the next slide, of course, also at the power exchange, we do not have a crystal ball to predict the future electricity prices. But what we can do is to have a look at the EEX financial power futures, or at the derivatives market, where power is traded weeks, months, and even years before delivery. And here we see that prices for the next year and also for 2024 still remain above the level that we were used to. Just to give an example, France, the calendar year 2023 has been traded over the trading day 15th of November at 423 euros per megawatt hour. So this world of high and volatile electricity prices is likely to persist for a while. Then if we go to the next slide, exactly. So to conclude this introduction, I would like to remind the causes or the root causes of the current crisis, because I think it's important to decide on the right measures then that need to be taken. So the current crisis is a supply crisis, meaning or resulting from drastically less gas supply from Russia, less nuclear power production in France, and in general less hydropower production in Europe due to a dry summer. It is not a failure of the electricity market or a market design failure. These prices, they reflect the reality of supply and demand. And on the contrary, the electricity market provides or keeps providing meaningful price signals every day. And these price signals, they are absolutely indispensable because they make the current situation transparent and they send a clear message, namely how urgent it is to save gas and how massively now renewable energies must be expanded. So therefore, reform measures, so because we have a supply crisis or supply shock, therefore reform measures, they should start after the pricing, so ex post, to safeguard the important price signals for energy saving and also not to jeopardize the huge benefits of the European market coupling. They are highlighted on the right side of the slide. And therefore, solutions, they lie in three main reactions, I would say. If you have a supply shock, then what you can best do is you can increase the supply of electricity, in particular through massive expansion of renewables. You can reduce the demand. This is also one of the main measures of the EU Council emergency regulation of beginning of October. And you can also make demand more flexible. And this would be it for the introductional words. If we can switch to the next slide. Thank you. So what can we expect? What can we expect for this winter? From EPEX side, we do not do a security of supply analysis, but TSOs do. And I would like to highlight some findings of the latest ENTSO-E winter outlook. So from 20th of October, there will be a full version that is expected for today or for beginning of December. And this report identifies the adequacy risks that the European electricity system may face for this winter. So it's based on different scenarios, one reference scenarios, and then for sensitivity cases. And ENTSO-E's key finding is that the situation this winter is critical but manageable. And manageable with a list of operational measures such as mitigation, preparation, coordination, and this all coordinated at national, regional, and European level. And when we have a closer look at the reference scenario here, ENTSO-E sees predominantly adequacy risks, mostly for France and Ireland. For France, they calculated the loss of load expectation of 26 hours for this winter. This for France. This does not mean that that there will be 26 hours in France this winter where demand will not be met. But this number is the average number of all the hours with adequacy risks of all the climate years that have been simulated by ENTSO-E. And it is this loss of load expectation measure is a very good indicator for adequacy risk. If the mitigation measures will be effective, everything that is now planned to be implemented, then these level of these loss of load expectation numbers are expected to be lower. Adequacy stress is in the most countries, especially predicted for January and February, but in some countries there is already risk seen before, and amongst others in France. There are some interesting results of some other scenarios. So, for example, in the low demand scenario, so if we succeed to implement the 10% electricity reduction target of the European Council regulation, then in this case, ENTSO-E concludes that the adequacy risks are quite mitigated across Europe below reliability standard levels. There's also the low nuclear scenario, and here, as one can expect, adequacy risks increase substantially in France. With regard to the fossil constraints scenario, meaning where there would be possible constraints on supply of coal and lignite in Germany and Poland, the loss of load expectation for Germany would still remain under 3 hours, so meaning no risk, but there would be adequacy becoming more stressed in the Nordics due to resulting lower import availability. And all in all, ENTSO-E also highlights the importance of cross-border capacities and efficient market operation that are crucial to maintain the adequacy in an efficient manner. If we go to the next slide, we can see that also also national TSOs, they did of course analysis with regard to this winter. RTE did so as well, and they concluded, or they reckon that the situation will be heated yet manageable. There is a risk of tension on the network, and in the most likely scenario of all the scenarios that RTE analyzed, they expect the nuclear power generation that will gradually improve from 25 gigawatt today to 45 gigawatt in January. And they expect that tensions will only arise in case of a very cold winter, like the one in 2010, 2011. If we go to the next slide, just some highlights of the German TSO's scenario. So they were requested by the German Ministry BMWK to do a special analysis to check whether the overall electricity demand in Germany is covered every hour of the coming winter, and also whether grid security is guaranteed. And the German TSOs, they conclude that in all the three scenarios they analyzed, the supply situation in the coming winter will be extremely tight. So this is in line also with the NSOE conclusions. With regard to loss of load, there are some figures shown in the slide, and German TSOs conclude in the study that by operating the nuclear power plants in a stretched out mode that has been decided until spring this next year, then the loss of load in Germany can be largely avoided. And it's the third box, the NPP plus scenario. And here German TSOs expect 0 to 1 hour of loss of load expectations. So if we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so as I said, from EPEX side, we do not do own adequacy analysis. That's why I wanted to refer to the TSO conclusions or expectations forecast for this winter. But what we can do is to have a look at the futures market prices at EEX, so the European Energy Exchange, our mother company. And these prices are a very good indication of the perception of the market of a default risk. And here what is seen, we see for the French market, the peak prices, and we can see that this was trading date last week, 24th of November. We can see that expectations of market participants for January, February, they lead to to power prices for January and February next year of even above 1,400 euros per megawatt hour. So it's the monthly power future prices that is shown in the orange line. And if we go to the next slide, there is the same picture, but for the German market. So it's also the peak prices. Prices are lower, but still, quite above the prices that we were used to. For January, well above 400 euros per megawatt hour, and for February 2023, above 500 euros. So also these figures, I would say they are in line with the TSO's expectations or with the TSO's conclusions. We have seen higher loss of load numbers, and this is also what we can see, what we can see when we have a look at the power futures prices. If we go to the next slide. Yes, so let's now directly jump into the next topic of the national measures. emergency intervention measures. So what I wanted to show on this slide, so there are many different proposals and options that have been put on the table in the last months, and so some of them have already been implemented, like the Iberian price cap scheme. Some of them are rather seem to be discarded, like for example the Austrian euphemia correction. Some of them are under implementation, like the revenue cap for inframarginal technologies. And I think what it shows as well is the high pressure that policymakers are, or under which high pressure policymakers are to show that they take action, and also, of course, to relieve most vulnerable consumers and households. If we go to the next slide, thank you. Yeah, so the Iberian price cap scheme is one measure that I would like to highlight a bit more, or go a little bit into more into detail, because it has been one measure that has been implemented in Spain and Portugal, and there was a wider debate whether it should be extended to the whole Europe or not. So just as a quick reminder how the Iberian solution works, has been implemented in June this year as a compensation mechanism for marginal technologies. So this means that gas and coal fueled power plants, they are compensated the difference between the gas exchange price and the cap. And the cap is set at 40 euros per megawatt hour. And then this subsidy is then paid by all the electricity consumers. And I would like to highlight three main effects that we have observed when assessing this instrument. So the first effect is a net decrease of end consumers' electricity bill. This is something that has been intended by this measure. So we can say this is one positive effect. Some calculations show that, so what does it mean in euros? Some calculations show that it has been a net decrease of 50 euros per megawatt hour. Nevertheless, one has to add here that the mechanism is getting increasingly costly because it increases gas supply, and so yeah, this will decrease this net benefits for the electricity consumers. And also it is unclear which households benefit in particular of this measure. It should be further assessed if really it targets if really also it targets most vulnerable consumers or not. And then there are two other effects that are adverse, or simply negative, but that are adverse effects. So first of all, the mechanism has led to an increased gas demand of approximately 40% during the first 3 months. And this is quite natural, because if you decrease artificially a price, then the consumption goes up. And as I said, this also makes the mechanism more and more, or increasingly, costly. And then we have seen a positive spread between the Spanish and the French electricity prices, and this leads to the fact that Spain became a net exporter of electricity to France. And also Spain is exporting more electricity than it did before to Morocco. And this effect would have been even higher if the interconnector capacities had not been reduced or decreased to an unusual level by 32% during the summer months. The year before, the interconnector capacities were only reduced by 8%. So yeah, but the effect is still here, and it means that with this measure, the Spanish end consumers, they subsidize lower electricity bills in their neighboring countries. And these are already two important reasons, I would say, why this mechanism cannot be a blueprint for the rest of the EU. And also, yeah, it means a severe government intervention, and it mixes up the merit order in favor of gas and coal, whereas we need, in the current crisis, we need exactly the opposite. So we need to boost the energy transition. We need to increase our renewable capacities and consumption, and not the gas consumption. And also, it could endanger the security of supply, because we have a scarcity of gas, and we should save now every gas that we can, and we should not, increasing the gas consumption is definitely not the right answer to this crisis. And so these are, I would say, the main issues that would occur when you extend the measure to the whole EU. And export to neighbors, we addressed this point. It could increase by 35% the export to non-EU member countries like Switzerland or the UK. If we go to the next slide. Yes, so what is currently discussed at EU level, in a quite heated way, it's another gas cap. So here we are talking about gas cap, not electricity cap. I think in the headline it's not precise, but I mean about gas price cap. So there are 15 member states that called in a letter for a price cap on all wholesale natural gas transactions. And then in reaction to that, the European Commission, they proposed a so-called market correction mechanism on 22nd of November. And it is like a price, or it means a price cap on the TTF, but with some particular conditions. There are two trigger mechanisms, and this price cap proposal for the TTF has been discussed or has created a heated discussion on the last Energy Council meeting on 24th of November last week. And so for the pro-cap countries like Italy, Belgium, Greece, and Poland, they believe that it is not ambitious enough. So they would, for example, argue that even in a situation like with very high gas prices, like we have seen in August, this mechanism would not have been triggered. So they say the triggering rules, they are too strict. On the other hand, we have seen a strong opposition from Germany, the Netherlands, and Denmark, for example, and they fear that this mechanism would be a risk for financial stability and also for security of gas supply. So the topic will be on the agenda of the next Energy Council, mid of December. If we go to the next slide. Yes, so decoupling gas costs from electricity price, this is another idea or concept that has been floating around in the last months. Sometimes not very clear what it means. It has been addressed in some speeches by Ursula von der Leyen. Also, there was also a Greek non-paper with a suggestion of separating the market into two segments. We will see if and how this topic will be further addressed. But ACER concluded in the April statement that also what I said in the very beginning, that the electricity market design is not to blame for the current crisis. If we go to the next slide. Yes. So this was it for an overview of all the different measures that have been discussed. Some have been implemented, and now I would like to go a little bit into more detail on one measure, on the cap on market revenues for inframarginal technologies. So this is a measure that is part of the EU Council regulation that entered into force on 6th of October, together with three other main emergency intervention measures to address the high energy prices. So we have seen, the Council decided on a reduction of the consumption, so 10% of the gross consumption, and then also 5% consumption reduction in peak hours. Then there has been decided that a solidarity contribution shall be introduced for the gas and oil sector, so for crude petroleum, natural gas, coal and refinery sector, and several retail measures have been decided. And the fourth measure of this package is the cap on market revenues. So the basic idea is to cap the revenues of certain inframarginal technologies, and then to redistribute this money to the most vulnerable consumers, households and companies. If we go to the next slide. So in the council regulation, what is then, how is the market revenue defined? So it is, how is it defined? So it's defined as realized income that a producer receives for the sale and delivery. And there is a list of technologies that is covered. So the renewable technologies, lignite, crude petroleum, and peat. And many things are left to member states. So, for example, the question: are there different price caps? The answer is yes and no. So the regulation only provides for a uniform cap of 180 euros per megawatt hour, but member states can eventually choose another cap. With regard to data collection and payment procedures, there are some unclear formulations, and so now member states, they have to find their national solutions for this. How long will it apply? From today, 1st of December, until end of June, and there is the possibility to extend the measure. If we go to the next slide. Are all markets covered? Well, not necessarily. Also here, member states, they have some leeway. So they may decide to exclude system services, for example, but all the traditional wholesale markets, they are covered. When will the revenues be determined? It can be, the cap can either apply when the settlement takes place of the exchange of electricity, or later. And so how is European harmonization and coordination guaranteed? A clear guidance from the European Commission is missing. So now the implementation depends a lot from each member state, and this is also a point where that will be decisive to respond to the question if this mechanism will work. So it will now mainly depend on the national implementation, and also of the level of coordination among member states. If we go to the next slide. Yes, so here we see that it doesn't look so coordinated among member states, because we have heard many different approaches by several member states how now to implement this cap. Just to highlight what has been discussed in France, for example, so far. A revenue cap of 180 euros per megawatt has been set in the text, but discussions are ongoing on the level of the cap. Renewables could be capped at 100 euros per megawatt hour, so below the European threshold, and fossil fuels could be kept at a higher level. Also, France considers a retroactive implementation as of 1st of July. If we go to the next slide. Yes, so here is what is discussed in Germany. And we have seen a first draft law that has been decided in cabinet, so the so-called electricity price break that has been decided in cabinet last Friday and is discussed today in the German Bundestag. So Germany intends to apply a stricter cap, so below 180 euros per megawatt hour, and this in a technology specific way. So how does it work? The German Ministry BMWK suggests a two-step approach to calculate the payment obligation for electricity producers. So first of all, there will be a spot payment obligation, and market participants or electricity producers, they have to pay 90% of this payment obligation. It's based on the difference between the spot benchmark revenue and in allowed revenue. And then this spot payment obligation is corrected by hedging results. So the futures markets are also taken into account. There are several things that we support. So in general, we believe that the general idea of the concept goes into the right direction. So also a price this market revenue cap sets in after the price building and after the settlement. So there is no direct interference with the merit order or with European market coupling. This is crucial. Also, some design elements of the German revenue cap, they are quite market-based, and for example, the 90% rule keeps incentives for market participants to optimize on the day-ahead market. This is very important, and also keeps incentives for trading participants to continue to compete with each other. And also the two-step approach, so first spot and then correction by hedging results, keeps the incentives to trade on the intraday market and on the futures market. This is also important not to distort these well-working markets. But then, as often, also here, the devil is in the detail. And there is the risks that the revenue target expected by politicians is not met. And we see a clear need for further amendments and clarifications in the parliamentary process that will take place in the next 2 weeks. So what are then the problems that we see with this measure? Clear end date missing. There have been some improvements with regard to the latest version decided in cabinet. So now there are two possible end dates. One first end date, end of June next year, and then there's the possibility to extend the mechanism to April 2024. But why is this a problem? We see if such measures they are not temporary, we see a risk of a paradigm shift away from competitive markets towards regulated markets where you have regulated revenues, so cost plus approach. So therefore, we believe that such measures they should really be temporary and not come to stay. We also see a risk of market coupling distortions. I already highlighted this is due to different national implementations. So because of all these problems, one can argue that an expansion of the solidarity contribution to the electricity sector could be a better or more reasonable alternative. Although I'm aware of the politically that it might be difficult to politically to implement. If we go to the next slide. Yes, so here we talked about the short-term measures, but we have to differentiate with the long-term perspective. So we expect the European Commission to draft the first proposal with their long-term, with regard to the long-term market design, mid of December, and there will be expected is a 4-week consultation period then. And this links me to the last 2 slides, also with regard to the time. Yes. So with regard to the future market, design, that where discussions, as I said, will now start at European level this month. We believe that there are 3 main pillars that are key for a spot market to make it fit for purpose in the mid and long term. So the first is to complete the EU power market integration. 2 days ago, we have seen an important milestone of further single intraday market coupling integration with Greece and Slovakia that joined the single intraday market coupling. So it's the completion of the so-called fourth wave. And there were other important projects in the pipeline, like the pan-EU intraday auctions, the expansion of flow-based market coupling to the Nordic countries, the introduction of 50-minute products for the single day ahead and the single intraday coupling. So these are projects that are highly complex projects that European power exchanges, so-called NEMOs, and European TSOs, they are strongly working on these projects, and they will lead to a completion of the European power market integration. So first pillar. Then second pillar, to implement measures increasing liquidity and granularity. Like implementing the measures that have been foreseen in the clean energy package. And then third pillar, to complement the harmonized energy-only market with additional decentralized market-based products, like, for example, decentralized flexibility markets. And what this would mean in more detail is what I would like to show on the next slide. And it's also the last slide. So with regard to the future power market design, to make it fit for the decentralized system, we have 7 main recommendations. So first of all, we do not need to start from a blank page, but we should rather capitalize on what has been achieved over the previous decades. And we need to keep in mind that the existence and the resilience of the European internal electricity market, it's one of the EU's greatest achievements. There is no more efficient and more stable electricity system in the world. So we should build on this, we should capitalize on these elements that have been already achieved. Then second recommendations, decentralized markets, they guarantee the highest system resilience. And moving towards the central dispatch or nodal designs, these are proposals that are likely to prove costly, lengthy, and might be even counterproductive to address the decentralization challenges. Then we need to, third recommendation, we need to protect the significance of markets and of price signals. Therefore, we should avoid market interventions like price caps, for example. Fourth recommendation, of course, we need to have the right investment signals to ensure security of supply. And therefore, I pretty much like also the statement that the German BDIW association repeatedly says. They say we can only invest out of this crisis. And the market tells us where to invest in decarbonized assets mainly. Then fifth, and it's linked also to the seventh recommendation, we need to value flexibility to ensure balanced grids with low congestions. So we see local flexibility markets as a complement to the wholesale electricity markets, and we see them as an important pillar of the successful energy transition. They can reduce redispatch costs and also cost for grid expansion and grid operation. And so barriers for small scale and demand side flexibilities need to be reduced. And then last recommendation, boost renewables through markets. So in the future, step by step, support schemes should be phased out and replaced by all possible market revenues. And I'm convinced that a market like the guarantees of origin markets can become one of the main instruments in the EU to develop renewables. So these are our recommendations. If we go to the very last slide, here I put some links of papers that of documents and papers that we recently published on these topics, if you're interested in some further reading. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cora. This is very exciting. And I think if I look at my clock, we might give us some additional minutes to go through a few questions that I received, and if you still haven't posted yours, don't hesitate to do it. Maybe in the beginning, for a better understanding, how would you rate the impact of these high prices in France and Germany? In Germany, there has been a lot of renewable energy on the market for a long time now, ever since 2012. And in France, we see, on the other hand, that there's still quite a large share of the market that is of the energy consumption that is tied up in AREN, for example, or TRVs, regulated fees for private households. How would you rate that? Is the impact of these high electricity prices on the market comparable in Germany and France?
Yes, so there are some similarities and some differences, of course, between the French and the German market. And you're right that in some aspects, yeah, there is in some aspects the French market is a little bit more regulated. You mentioned the AREN mechanism, or also regulated tariffs for end consumers. This can have an effect that, maybe for households and also for companies, the effect of the increased prices came a little bit delayed. But also in Germany, we have seen differences. And for example, those companies who were hedged and reduced their risks, they have been much less impacted by the high prices.
Okay. Another question, several questions about interconnections and the limitation you mentioned towards Spain, and also the objective of the clean energy package to raise minimum trading volumes to 70%. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And if we see now, in some cases between Germany and France, also an increase in that minimum trading volume across the border, what is the impact on prices in both countries? And what are we exactly talking about if we talk about volumes in that case?
Mhm. Yes. So yeah, the interconnector capacities is something that the TSOs they calculate, and there is the objective in the clean energy package to increase these cross-border trading capacities to 70%. So in some interconnections, the situation is still far away from the 70%, and this will increase also trading opportunities. And if yeah, so the interconnector capacities, they are also, or they are always the limiting factor. So if there would be unlimited cross-border capacities, then we would see all over Europe the same day-ahead price, for example. But they are the limiting factors or a limiting factor, and this is why we see a price convergence. And for example, last year in the countries we operate, we have seen a price convergence of about 50%, but prices do not converge all the time. So therefore, we see differences. But in general, electricity always goes from, or in the market coupling world, electricity always goes from the country with the lower electricity price to the country with the higher electricity price.
All right, and there is no fear that, let's say, it's one thing to express something in euros, but on the other hand, in physical terms, the energy will go from one country to another, and this would not lead to a higher risk of blackouts, for example, in your opinion?
I would say the contrary, or if I understood the question correctly, I would say the contrary. The fact that the European member states, they are coupled, increases security of supply, because it's the principle of European solidarity. So it means that no European country is left on its own in a situation where the own capacity, or yeah, the own capacity is not able to satisfy the national demand. And in these times, and even net exporting countries, in some hours of the year, they are also importing electricity. So they can rely on imports to then, in these situations, satisfy the demand. So in this way, yeah, market coupling is a crucial factor for higher security of supply for each European country, in addition to for all the economic and welfare benefits that it creates, and also benefits for the integration of renewables that can be that is improved when the markets are coupled.
Okay, thank you very much. I have one question that is quite long. I would maybe condense it in a question about, towards a question about pay as bid and pay as clear. The main theme is it acceptable that someone who can generate and sell electricity for 80 euros that he will receive for the same megawatt hour 1,000 euros, if that is politically decent? So I think it points towards pay as bid and pay as clear. What are your views on that?
Yes, I think it relates to the fact that in the price building mechanism, according to the price building of merit order and pay as clear, indeed, it is always the latest activated, or the latest activated plant that sets the price exactly. If it's a gas power plant, then all the other plants also receive the marginal costs of this gas power plant. I think it relates. This question relates to this. But we should keep in mind that if we change to another principle that is on the intraday market, like pay as bid, then yeah, no one would bid anymore at their own marginal cost. So no one would bid at 80 euros, for example, but you would bid at the prices that you expect to be the marginal costs of the latest activated plant.
But today, if I get it right, bids are already checked on what concerns their coherence in terms of marginal cost with the current system. So could that not be applied to pay as bid logic also?
I'm not sure if I fully understand the idea behind, but yeah. So I mean, well, the topic of yeah, inframarginal rents is addressed now in the cap of yeah, market revenues. So these revenues shall now be kept. But one also has to keep in mind that the merit order principle, it also ensures, or it always ensures, that the demand is yeah, satisfied with the lowest possible costs, because it's there are also hours where, for example, or it ensures that everyone bids at their marginal costs and not above. There are always, or there are also yeah, situations. Yeah, no, that's it so far.
Okay. Yes, let's do one last question, maybe a topic that has been mentioned several times is corporate PPAs, and you mentioned your, or you stated your opinion that a market cap would make PPAs less attractive. Could you develop this point for us?
Yes. So this is a yeah. So this can be a danger. So there are some remaining unclarities and thus uncertainties also how to proceed with renewable PPAs. And there are also concerns whether the benchmark approach fits the reality of the PPAs. And it's also unclear whether the existing or potentially new PPAs, they should be treated equally or differently. And yeah, depending on the final design, there is a risk that concluding new PPAs during the term of the revenue cap would come to a standstill. So here we really see need for an yeah, improvement of the during the now parliamentary process.
Okay.
Because this would be the opposite of what is needed. We need to our PPAs need to be further developed. They are market-based remuneration for renewables, and yeah, any law should not the revenue cap mechanism should not kill incentives to conclude new PPAs.
Great. Thank you very much, Cora. This was really, really valuable, I think, for everyone who's been following us today, for myself also. So thank you very much. And this is the third webinar we did since 2020 on market prices. So I'm quite sure that we will be in touch in the nearer future to see if we don't need a fourth edition of this webinar, just to see if if things turned out the way you predicted, or if we have a new crisis to handle on our hands. So we reached the end of this webinar. Thank you ever so much for listening. And again, to you, Cora, big thanks, and to EPEX for enlightening us today with
you
your
very much.
views and analysis, and also for the material you provided. Thank you very much also to Audrey and Tim from our team for setting up this webinar and the technical support. Before we sign off, just a few announcements for your agendas. Coming up next at the Franco-German office for the energy transition, we have on December 6th another webinar, and again on a very exciting topic, the acceleration of planning procedures for onshore wind projects. So make sure you sign up. We are slowly running out of places. On December 7th, we will have a political debate on the impact of the current energy prices, so very much in link with what we just heard, and decarbonization regulations on industry, with many high-level speakers from the European Commission, science, the renewable community, and the industry at the German embassy in Paris, and this event is now booked up. And we will finish the conferences in 2022 with an online conference on large-scale rooftop PV on December 13th, with also many interesting aspects, including business models like self-consumption and corporate PPAs. And we have a few places left, so do check out all that on our website, ofate.eu or dfbew.eu. For more information, also to register, and you will also find there very soon today's slides and also the video and many interesting publications that will provide you with a deeper insight on quite a few topics. And please do make sure that you are on our mailing list, so we can keep you updated with everything that will happen within the next weeks and months. And that is all from my side for now. Thank you very much for tuning in today. And I hope we meet again very soon. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.